My name is Kristin. I'm excited to be here with Larry and Nathan to talk about a new program that or I guess a new course that we're going to start, as well as talk about um, today's discussion, which is Ideas to Impact, Unleashing the Power of Creativity in Your Marketing Campaigns. Just a friendly reminder, if you want to go ahead and mute your mics, that would be great, as well as use the chat to ask any questions. I know myself and Stephanie and probably Larry and Nathan will be looking at those as well. And first, I'm going to let you learn more about our panel today. And I will start with Larry. If you want to say a few words, Larry, and tell them who you are, and then we'll jump right into the course today.
Okay. Well, I've enjoyed putting this little course together, and I started out running a design studio advertising agency about, oh my goodness, 50 years ago. Did that for 25 years, and then I started teaching at the Portfolio Center and the Art Institute of Atlanta, and I became really infatuated by how people think creatively, how creative ideas are born. And so I did a study on that, and then I met Chad Mesra. And 2007, I think I started teaching with this program at West Virginia University, and I've been teaching creative strategy and execution ever since. And so I'm here to help this program along today. Go ahead.
Great. And Nathan?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday to you. My name is Nathan Peratt. I have, see my background. I've got about 20 years in the industry. I have worn a lot of hats. I started out as a graphic designer and worked my way into creative director roles, head of marketing roles, in a wide range of industries, both B2B, small businesses, and a couple large agencies out of Dallas. So it's been a great run. I really love the IMC program here at WVU. I'm a graduate. I do a little bit of teaching for us, and when I was asked to help with this Creative Spark class, jumped on the opportunity. You know, that journey of creativity is dynamic and a lot of fun, and I think we all need a lot of encouragement, and so we try to bring a lot of that into this class to give you best practices as well as some insights that we have over the course of our careers. So it's great to be here.
Fantastic. I think I can echo Larry and Nathan both. We are excited to come together when both of their names were mentioned, and even just today's panel and talking about the course in general. I was excited because I know I have a lot to learn from both of them as well. So again, my name is Kristin Meeks. I own a social media marketing agency here in West Virginia. I've been doing that for about 13 years. I am a graduate of the IMC program. I always laugh and say I'm like one of the older graduates in 2007, graduating the program. So a lot has changed since then. But I got my start helping with the social media at a community college in Ohio before social media was a thing. So we had to be super creative because we had to know not only try to get them out, but convince people much above us that it was a good idea as well. So today we are going to talk a little bit about the 6-week course that is coming up on May 22nd, but also give you some really practical, creative things that you can start using hopefully today or tomorrow to help propel your career, to help propel your job or your business in the creative space. And I mean, even though I feel like I'm a creative, I know it can be difficult, and it can be difficult to be creative in the type of environment sometimes we're put into. So I want to first start out with something that I feel like really resonates with me, as well as probably a lot of you on this call, which is imposter syndrome. And I was excited to see that Larry is talking a whole session on Integrate, which is, I guess it starts at the beginning of June, the conference in Morgantown, about imposter syndrome. And I was so glad to see that that is happening, because I want to listen to that and I want to learn more about it. And I feel like even after being in an industry like Nathan, about 20 years, you still feel that way sometimes. So Larry, tell us a little bit about imposter syndrome and why we shouldn't.
Okay, I can start out that I'm having a little bit of connectivity issues. So I hope this runs smoothly. So I know that a lot of people that are going to take this course are from a wide variety of backgrounds. I think we're going to have people that are aspiring employees, organizational leaders, employee development program managers, or entrepreneurs, to even creative people. And there's one thing that I always try to tell people is that there are two traits of creative people. If you're in a creative endeavor, there's two things that are probably true of each and every person that's going to take this course. Number one, creative people believe they can do absolutely anything. I'll say, yes, you need an umbrella made for your company. Yeah, I can do that. I can make an umbrella. I've had to do that, as a matter of fact. But the other thing that's a trait is we think we might be an imposter. You just say, well, that can't really be any good. I did it. I remember in New Orleans, I was working there, and I did a poster for a hotel, and thought it was pretty good. Everybody encouraged me to enter it in the Art Directors and Designers Association contest that year, and I put it in, and I was just nonchalant. Pretty soon at the end of the show, they said, and now to announce the best of show, and they announced my poster had won best of show, and I thought, no, that can't be. There's no way that that's best of show. I did it. So anyway, we all face fears, that imposter thing. We fear being laughed at. Nobody likes to be laughed at. We fear losing what we have. We've worked our whole career to build up this persona that's us, and we don't want to lose that. We fear rejection. Nobody likes to be told no. We fear the unknown. We don't know what's coming on. And if you don't know, you're not going to dive in, right? So, and then the fear of exposure. Can I do it again? Am I a fake? Am I a fake or not? And related to that is one of our worst fears, our worst enemies, is self-censorship. How many times have you begun writing or drawing or taking a picture or planning a project and thrown it away, just throw it away because it can't be any good. You did it, right? So that's a trait that we all have to watch out for. There was a story on NPR about the steps you can take to shake the feeling that you're an imposter. There was a woman named Diana Opong and Suzanne Imes. They're here in Atlanta, and they asked if you ever felt like a fraud, that your peers will somehow be smarter and more creative than you. And it's sort of a given in the industry that the imposter syndrome is actually a phenomenon. The imposter phenomenon is a feeling that many high achieving people have, that they're not as creative, as intelligent as other people think they are, and they live in constant fear of being exposed. So she says, there's things you have to recognize the fact that there is an imposter within you that's trying to get out and trying to come to the forefront. Number two, it's important to acknowledge the societal impact of that influences that feeling, whether it's society within your company, within your peer group, within your client list. And then also the tip number three is taking the stock of your true talents. Make a list before you ever dive into doing anything. Make a list of what you're really pretty bad at. Make a list of what you're fairly good at, mediocre good, and then make a list of what you really can do right and do well. Stick with that. If you know what you are, you're not going to worry as much about being a fake or an imposter. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I must be a creative, because I have that can-do attitude. I'm like, yeah, I can do any DIY I put my mind to. I'm not sure how it turns out at the end, but that must be my definition of a creative there. Nathan, anything to add with the imposter syndrome?
Actually, yeah, it's very relevant. I had a conversation with our marketing director about 2 weeks ago, and she came in and she said, I feel like an imposter. I struggle with that too. I think we all do. My suggestion is, Larry's list there was great. Find people in your company, in your world, to encourage you, help you make those lists of your strengths and weaknesses. If you don't have a constant, or if you don't have any encouragement flowing in around your process and around your work, it's a lonely road. It can be very intense. It can be anxiety driven. We're moving at a faster pace than we've ever moved to come up with these ideas and to execute creative. And I have found we have a lot more misses than we used to, but we have a lot more wins too. And so that ability to be self-aware, recognize the imposter, and then find people to speak in. So I now, she and I meet once every few weeks and just say, hey, how's the imposter? We laugh about it. We encourage each other, and it's been very useful.
That's fantastic. And I think that's definitely something we've seen shift. And any of you that are solopreneurs like I am, I think that's important to still put people around us. I try to put myself in groups, chamber of commerce with other business people, and encourage each other, and really try to just be a sounding board for other people, because it is a lonely road if you are by yourself and you're trying to be creative and you're trying to come up with the next big idea, and it doesn't seem to be hitting the mark as what you would wish.
Yeah, and the other observation I'd make is everybody else is faking it too. Like we're all feeling the same. And we come down to it, even the CMOs are going, I'm not quite sure I know what's going on with this new technology. I had the conversation with our CMO the other day, and he's like, hey, would you help me figure this out? Because I'm not sure what's going on, because things are moving so fast. So we're all in the same boat, and some are just more vocal than others, and maybe so. Yep.
I agree.
Did it freeze? No.
Nathan, you have a question?
I didn't hear this question. Sorry, I froze.
I would say, Nathan, do you have a question to put out there, or you want me to
continue? Oh yeah. So let's transition to let's transition to
we're faking it.
Yeah, we're moving there. So Kristin, she has a ton of experience with content strategy. And I have learned in my job, like I said, there's this constant need of creating new content. We need blog posts. We need to make sure we've got SEO running out the nose for all kinds of things. And let's try and repurpose. Let's try and work smart. But by the way, you have no budget. We're not going to spend any money on anything. You're going to have to figure this out and get creative with strategic messaging. So I would love to hear your process around strategic messaging, if you could share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just were sitting in on my day-to-day there. We need it all. We have no budget, and we need you to be super creative. So with me, I start from the very beginner, basic research. If somebody reaches out to me and said, hey, I want to run this campaign, I need to be super creative and I have no ideas, and we need it to, yield this, and we've got this budget. That's where I start, is research. And there's a couple of things that I've learned throughout the years, and it might be my higher education background, is that we always go after best practices. I always say we're not copying anyone. I don't want you to go down the street and do exactly what somebody else is doing, but go and do some research to see what has worked in the past. Now, the scary kind of hard part here is sometimes what worked 5 years ago won't work today, because the technology is so different right now. But we can still look at that and tweak it and hopefully move forward with that. So research is a big thing for me. I look and see, first and foremost, what people have done in the past, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And that could be at the level of very high level of maybe some businesses that you would be like, oh, I would never work for them. They're way, too high above me. Or the person next door that may have ran a good campaign. I can literally say right now, go and look at my social media, and I can pull, a big brand, a small brand, a medium brand that's doing well in the industry. So I can go anytime and look at those and get some inspiration. So that's where I start. And then I always do remember that everything is trial and error, especially in the digital world where I spend, 99% of my time. I will say I've written more press releases in the last couple of years than I probably have in the first 20 years. But everything is digital. So the trial and error can really be done there. So what if it doesn't work the first time? So what? Tweak it. We are in a time where we can really tweak on the fly. And so we don't have to be set in something. And that makes me more confident, because if I have to do, like what Larry was saying, do a flyer, that makes me really nervous and really anxious about doing a flyer, because that's really permanent to me. That's a one shot, and it's permanent. And if things don't look right, or God forbid there's a typo, you can't change it. It's already out there. But in the digital world, we can tweak things. We can see data in real time on most of these digital platforms that we're on, and then we can tweak. So a couple weeks ago, I was running some Google ads for a new client, and that's always scary because you never know what's going to stick, who's spending what. And so there's a lot of like, okay, what words can I use that are going to work, and what's the keyword? So once we get past all of that, I can go in there, every 24 hours and make little tweaks to it. And what got me with this one is they only wanted to run through the week, which is fine. Like, I do what they say to the best of my ability. And I said, okay, we'll turn it off on Fridays and we'll start it again on Monday. And by the time it was doing really well, because we made all these tweaks and trial and errors, then I had to turn it off. But the good news is, again, we can just look at what worked the week before and repurpose it for the next week. So I think that's kind of where I start with that, is research and trial and error. Those two are just two big parts of the components for me when I start, making creatives and writing content.
How do you decide what content to deliver? You got research, and now you've done the heavy lifting, so now it's time to pull the trigger.
I know. Well, and I think that just goes back to trial and error too. What's really nice about a lot, especially in the social world, they have really tried to set us up really recently that there's a lot of A/B testing. So sometimes I'll test things, and the big joke was several years ago when I got started, especially on social ads, they'd let you do like so many pictures and so much different content. And I'd always go, well, I'll pick these 3 or 6 graphics, and these are the best ones. These are my favorites. Or maybe I'd pick 5, and then the 6th one would be like, I don't really love that, but the client loves it. And it would always be the one that I didn't love the most that would do the best. And so I'd always have to laugh and be like, okay, do I really, again, imposter syndrome, do I have an eye for this or do I not? But there was something that made me draw towards that. And it probably came down to the fact that it aligned strategically with what I was saying, that made me go, okay, this would be it. Not my favorite, not my personal favorite, but it works with the things. It works with the content and where we were delivering it to. So that's, a lot of it, unfortunately, or fortunately, Nathan, is trial and error for me, in deciding, and then also having more than one set of eyes on it. I think a lot of times we set, and this happens to a lot of my clients, is they have a certain demographic in their head, and they think that their content should serve them, but they're not the demographic. Maybe it's a totally different generation than the person that owns the business, and they have a really hard time trying to figure out, oh, well, why is that not working? Because I love it. And so you have to get past all of that too. So there's a lot of breakdown there, and that's one thing I've kind of tried to realize, is that even if I don't love it, or even if it doesn't serve me, I have to really keep the demographic in mind, and I get the eyes of that demographic. So, I've successfully turned 2 of my old babysitters into marketing people. So I put things towards them who are in their 20s. I have friends that they're older than me, younger than me, have had, 5 years experience, have 25 years experience. And I say, what do you think about this? I might just screenshot it and send it to him. Like, what do you think about this? Do you think it's terrible? Do you think it's awesome? Because I think that's really important to get those different eyes on there, especially if you're not the target demographic.
Yep.
Anything else to add with that? Am I totally off kilter? Have I told all my trade secrets here? So if I am, I might be looking for a new job.
It's fun to hear your perspective as an entrepreneur.
I think we've all lived it. We live what you live, so I think you're right on it.
Thank you.
On my end, when I'm working on a large team with lots of input from people on what the strategic messaging should be. So part of a skill set that you want to have is to be able to read the room. Who has the power, who's going to have the most influence, I think who's going to cause the most pain. Let's make sure I'm trying to sell them on the ideas and make sure I get their buy-in if it's possible. So just understanding to read the room, because when you have a lot of voices that impact the strategic message, it can wind up being many, many rounds of work for the creative, and then you burn out your creative team and everybody's grumpy. And it's, especially now when there's test and learn, I've had to teach myself to enjoy the test and learn process. It's become a really powerful tool in the creative process. But at the beginning, It's like, what do you mean I got to do 7 versions? And how are we going to get all this done in the timelines that we have to do? But over time, it's because you get what comes back, your creative gets better. So that testing and learning, even in small increments, you see the creative elevate both from a messaging and aesthetic standpoint, because you have that data set to come in and help you learn, talk to the audience better. You get better. Obviously, we're trying to sell, right? So we sold more units and everybody's happy. And so it's good.
I think
That'd
there
be my
is
experience.
a sweet spot with that. I've recently hired a video editor. And so there's a lot of back and forth, and I kind of have to be like, okay, like, there's only one edit being able to be allowed and things like that. So I'm kind of learning that way. We do have a few questions. The first one I do want to address right now, and then we'll talk about the other two here a little bit later when we start digging deep into especially AI. And the first question, Lynette asked, what advice, guidance do you give social and organization that's pretty conservative with their online presence and classified, AKA the government? It's hard to keep daily content and stuff up. So that's what Lynette, I'll answer it, but I'll let Larry and Nathan say what they want to too. But I feel like that is like one of my strengths, is because I deal with that every day, and that's one of the things I dive really deep into in that 6-week course. And I question myself, especially, in the academia world, always teaching for the IMC program. This is completely different, but, bringing out that space. And so I'll give you a couple other trade secrets of mine. So during my research, I always go and look at the website of the organization. And I always feel like a website is like this piece of content in the world that somebody has probably paid a lot of money, spent a lot of time on, put all their content there, and then they may never even like look at it again. And it's okay if you're like, okay, that's me. Or if you're like, no, we're there every day. But a lot of people are on that side where they've done that and they've done the work and it just sits there. So a lot of times I start with the website and I kind of go through the tabs of the website and think, okay, how could this be relative on social? Like, how can I take little bits and pieces of this or teasers from this? And then, like I think Nathan was saying, SEO and all of that, push them back to the website, which will hopefully make all those people happy that are watching those stats, and push them back so then they learn more. So depending on what's on your website, Lynette, I would say starting there to kind of try to think of those daily content. A lot of my clients, another side of this, and then I'll move on, but another side of this, my clients will be like, hey, tomorrow's National Cupcake Day. And I'll go, okay, yeah, great. Like, are we going to eat cupcakes? And they're like, well, you need to post it's National Cupcake Day. And I'm like, okay, first off, are you a bakery? Most of the time, not. Are you going to deliver cupcakes to somebody? Like, I'm trying to figure out the relative, which trying to be as nice as possible, filling out the relevancy there. But I hate for people just to post things just to post it. If there's a relevant thing that you can do there, if you're trying to build up partnerships and you think, you know what, we're a home health place and we want to make partnerships with this doctor, we're going to bring cupcakes to this doctor's office on Thursday and we're going to take some pictures and we're going to talk about it and they're going to be happy and all that stuff, then that's very relevant. If it's just a post, it's National Cupcake Day because it's National Cupcake Day, that's where the content kind of gets a little stale to me. So hopefully that answered your question. Larry, Nathan, you have anything to add to that? Have you dealt with that with the government?
Oh, I deal with it all the time. And I, just to be candid, I work for a B2B company and our team is divided. We have a few folks on the team that think social media is really important. And it's we're supposed to do it just to do it. And we're supposed to look fun and funky, but we're B2B. None of our clients are getting on Instagram. They're just not. So we've had to really establish some hard lines. What are we going to use these channels for in LinkedIn versus Instagram versus Twitter, and then organize our content around those goals. And then what my creative team and I do is we concept around, all right, what's happening in our industry? Like what's going on? We work with car dealerships. So what's going on in, like, it's tax season. So we might have a campaign that's relevant to the tax season. And campaign, what I mean by that is a messaging strategy that we can lock down, run it by the C-suite. And now social media isn't, we're not trying to find content. We found hard anchors for the next 6 months. It's tax season, it's summer fun, and then it's something else, and we build content around that. So I would suggest you reach out to whoever helps you make those decisions and maybe ideate around, well, what are some of the anchors that we think our audience is relevant as Kristin said, like what's relevant, and can we get creative about how we share that? And we cadence our post over time. We'll post one in May, we'll post one in June, and then we'll pepper in a few other posts around these things. And I've learned that getting that approval ahead of time, you bob and weave. You might change your mind, but at least you have an anchor to jump off of, and you're not trying to pull things out of the air in real time. You never feel good when you have to do it that way. It's hard. It's not as impactful. That'd be my advice.
Absolutely. Well, the next thing I think goes kind of to your question, Lynette, too, about AI. One of the things I wanted to hear from Nathan, his section of this course is creative execution. And so there are so many tools and tactics, and we've all kind of like emailed back and forth different tools that we use that have made our lives easier, maybe made our lives more complex, maybe made content creation a little bit easier. But Nathan, love to hear some tools and techniques or tactics, and then maybe even talk about AI if you'd like, since Lynette's interested as well.
Sure. Yeah, it's I'm smiling because I it's so new. I'm still learning myself. As a philosophy, I see AI isn't going to take my job as a creative director. It's going to, the people who understand how to use AI will. And that is coming out at a very rapid clip. And there are certain parts of the creative process that it's having a really strong impact very fast. Writing is one of them. Video is the other one. And I would encourage all of you to have an appetite of discovery. Like follow AI posts on LinkedIn, follow the thought leaderships for AI. And I share some of those resources in the Creative Spark class. I talk quite a bit about here's how I'm using it personally. And I'm using it personally for a lot of when I write copy. Or I'm writing blog posts, or I'm writing any kind of content that we need. I've taught AI, for example, to learn the tone of voice of our CEO. And I'll write something and I'll say, now rewrite this in the tone of voice of my CEO. And it's expediting that process. Instead of taking days, it's taking hours. And it's awesome. Like it's almost mind-blowingly, I'm not even sure how to wrap my head around it. From an image standpoint, though, from like a graphic designer standpoint, I've got a master's degree in graphic design. I teach graphic design students. I'm not as concerned for them yet because it's copyright is a really serious problem. So text to image, Mid-Journey, Dolly, that's really exciting. Coke is doing did a really neat campaign with it. I talk about that in the class as well. What are brands doing with it? And you see the big money brands touching it, you know it's coming. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hit businesses like I work in, which is a SaaS company, mid-level. I'm not looking for graphic designers that know how to use AI yet. But I am looking for creatives that understand how to leverage AI for writing. And so it's we touched some of that in the class, and it's an exciting time to be in the industry. I'm not sure we've seen this level of disruption since mobile. And even then, this is bigger than that because it helps us save money. It's efficiency. So it's really interesting.
And I'm excited because that's how I've built my business, is being efficient and automated and stay a solopreneur. So I'm excited for AI. Lynette, to answer your second part of that, of course, our 6-week course, we'll talk about AI. So that's a great place to start. But as I tell everyone, start small. Find something that is free. There are some AI programs that are free or very low cost, and start there. One of the ways that I have been integrating AI is I have it write video scripts. So I had somebody come in and we're doing video for, so many different things over a course of a year. And I'm like, well, I either write these scripts on content that I'm not the subject matter expert on, or I try to put it into AI. But as Nathan kind of alluded, it's not going to take anyone's job because it's not 100% accurate. That's what I've learned is I've sent it to the subject matter experts and they've corrected a few things. So I think it is exciting, but definitely something to, just keep in our back pocket and learn about and watch for sure.
If you're just real quick, if you're looking for a free version of AI, just sign up for ChatGPT. And they have a paid version and they have a free version. Just jump onto ChatGPT, start asking it questions, start writing in it. I use it for concepting. Hey, how do I say innovative, solutions in 10 different ways? And it'll give me those solutions it'll give me those words really fast. And I might get 30 words from them and I'll only pick one and I'll use that in my copy. So it helps me to, so just get on ChatGPT real quick and play around with that. And I share some more resources in the class on some there's people leading and offering links around, but it's the Wild West, guys. I mean, like, everybody's trying to be the next Adobe in the sense of, I want to be the tool that marketers use. And they're coming out really fast. And I would guess 80% of them are garbage.
Yeah.
And 20% are going to be amazing. And it's going to level set. And we're all a part of that amazing journey to be able to decide which tools the industries will be able to use and not use. It's just a lot of fun. It's going to be a wild ride in the next couple of years.
I mean, we may be doing one of these just on AI.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Here in a couple months or a year. Larry, I'd like to talk a little more to you about part of that process. We call it kind of that part one is kind of knowing thyself. How do you find your muse? I know there's research with that, and there's exercises we can do and all that stuff. But how do you do it? Because I want to know how that works from your perspective.
Well, I was going to talk about that because, all the tools and techniques and technologies and AI and all that is great. And all the applications to social media is great. But somewhere in the beginning, you have to come up with an idea. What do you want to do with it? Where's your idea come from? And that's why my part of the course is going to show people 3 or 4 different techniques on ideation, how to come up with creative ideas. And you do have to find your muse. And I think that the muses can be socializing with people to get new ideas and perspectives. Maybe your muse can be music. Maybe you listen to music, collaborate with other artists, musicians, and talk about music, play music, listen to music. You can people watch is a great muse for a lot of people. I'm a people watcher. I love to get out and sit on a park bench or whatever, go to the airport. I love to go to the airport and watch people. You can talk to people and expand their horizons. There's a video. I'm looking at a list of muses that I got this morning. So listening to music, writing, just creative writing, spontaneous writing. You'd be surprised the number of ideas you'll get just if you force yourself to sit and write. Reading different stories, and doodling and drawing is a great muse. Exploring the world around you. I firmly believe in getting out in nature. My students will tell you that I do videos for my courses, and I'm usually out in the woods or in my backyard in nature, and it just gets me thinking. Being in nature gets me thinking. Changing your creative environment is a good muse builder. And then in the course, I'm going to be getting into life's universal journey. There's so billions and billions of experiences that we all collect in our lives, from even before we're born. And you can draw upon those experiences in the life's universal journey and share those ideas. Like, I've got 5 that I'm going to talk about in the course. One of them is everybody likes to cookies and milk together. Everybody has known being a child and standing in a mud puddle after the rainstorm. You've looked at a baby's fingers and toes and said, boy, those are really tiny things. And you let a cat or a dog look you right in the face, probably on purpose, maybe accidentally. And you've flown your hand in the wind out of a moving car. All of those things can be drawn upon for gaining ideas. And then I'll also get into something in the course called random stimulus response, where you can use objects, colors, sounds, words, a lot of different things to stimulate your thoughts. So ideas can come from almost anywhere, but you have to have an idea before you can apply it to all these great, fantastic technologies that we're using. And I'm totally overwhelmed by a whole lot of those technologies and the AI thing, but I do know how to generate ideas, and I'm going to share that with everybody in the course. And so we'll see how that goes. It's always fun.
Yeah, I do some of my best idea thinking when I'm driving alone for long distances. And then I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going to go with all of this? So I think that would be helpful to take this course for me and go through all that process. So I think that's great. Nathan, you have anything to add to that?
No, that all, I'm totally aligned to that creative process, super important. I am seeing in the chat, Heidi had a question. And Heidi's question is, how do you address imposter syndrome in switching between creative jobs? That's a really interesting question. I don't, um, I think it's interesting because you're switching between creative jobs. It's not like you're switching from a non-creative to a creative. So I would just encourage you to tell those little voices that are creating doubt to be quiet. You're probably pretty good at your job. If you're going from one creative job to the other, find mentors, find people who do that job very well, read what they're writing. LinkedIn's a great source for that, right? I follow a couple guys that I think are just fantastic, and they share even their silly posts that they share tend to be inspiring and interesting and encouraging. I would just encourage you to like Larry said at the beginning, find the things that are creating the anxiety, write those down, and then think about those in a objective sort of way, and ask people that you respect to speak into that too, and address that. And sometimes it's just telling it to go away, just not giving it any room. Don't give it any power. And if you've got a creative boss, ask them for some mentoring if they're approachable, and they'll help you address some of that anxiety as well. Because most of the time it's about output, right? Is my idea good enough? Can I actually do the thing they're asking me to do? Oh my gosh, I have to write a story for a video. I get pretty paralyzed with video because they're so complicated and it just so many things. So I found that I talked to a few people to help me with that process. I've got a team to help me through the things that are hard for me. So that's my advice.
Larry, have you dealt with that before? Switching between creative jobs, having imposter syndrome?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, today I'm dealing with a couple of things that is confused. I may sound like I'm confused too, but I'm trying to do this podcast thing with you, this conversation. At the same time, I'm trying to develop a presentation deck for Integrate, and I'm also at the same time getting ready to teach a summer course. And it's, how do I keep it all straight? Did I already say this in the podcast? Did I? Anyway, yes, I deal with that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we have to keep thinking about is, there isn't a one size fits all for any of this. And it's definitely all new for all of us. We had another question here. In the new world of hybrid and remote, as a virtual professional, what is your best tip on creating and maintaining work relationships via online? I can speak a little bit to this. So I worked from home before it was like the cool thing to do, before everyone was virtual. One of my favorite stories to tell is a marketing director about 6 months before COVID hit, saying I said, you need to give your people flexibility. That's why they're leaving you so quickly. And you were having a candid conversation about how to keep employees. And she's like, we just can't. We can't do that. And then that happened. And so I'm like, see, you made it happen. It was okay. And so you still were able to maintain those relationships and you were still able to get the work done. So I always laugh and think, okay, well, I was able to do it for years and years and years before everyone else started doing it. For me, if you don't have to be chained to your desk and sitting in front of a computer for 40 hours a week, I wouldn't do it. I think that is definitely something that crushes my creativity. I'm kind of rejuvenized by being around people. So I try to put myself around people, especially if you're kind of like, a lot of us are like a one-man marketing team. And so if you can go out and network with other people, or go to a luncheon at a chamber or something along those lines, that can kind of just, even if you're thinking these are creative people, it will start getting those juices flowing again, and things that can do. Oh, that's all ADD. Well, we always laugh at my house is that we probably all have a touch of ADD, but that's why we drink coffee, right? So that's how, as soon as we can get my daughter on coffee, we should be all good on this. But yes. So yeah, I mean, I think, maintaining those relationships. I use a lot of apps. An app that I use almost every single day to talk to a fellow marketing person turned friend is called Marco Polo, and we talk on that app. And so it's like having a real life coworker beside you. Just trying to network on LinkedIn and be conscientious of doing that, making time and space in my day to get on those platforms and actually communicate, not just hit the like button or lurk or read, but actually communicate back and forth. So that's how I've been doing it for the last 13 years and kind of have kept myself sane, because it's definitely nothing that I have wanted to sit in front of a desk 40 hours a week and be by myself is not a good fit for me. But I've been able to work and do that and integrate those things to make make it successful for me. What about you guys?
So my experience, I was a group creative director at a very large agency called Epsilon, and I was managing 15 creatives, and half of them were in Chicago, and I was in Dallas. And so what I learned, there's relationships are complicated, right? But then at the end of the day, we need to get the work done. So there's the execution phase of the relationship. I need you to do your jobs, and I want to make them as easy as possible. So we always started off with trying to make sure expectations were really clear. And we would have check-ins on a regular basis to make sure everybody was feeling still aligned to those expectations. Because what happens if a creative starts to get grumpy or they don't understand the objectives, things start to wobble, and then there's anxiety and tension. So my first suggestion on you're managing those relationships is really about making sure everybody's on the same page with expectations. And expectations are driven by goodwill. So if you're in a position of being the boss, your job isn't to micromanage or control, it's to make sure those expectations are very clear, and then let them do their jobs. And if they screw up, you can coach them and help them on the things that maybe aren't being done so well. I've been on the other end where we have remote, and the boss is very controlling, and it's suffocating for a creative team. So if you're running creative teams and you're a control freak, be ready for people to jump, because creatives really don't like that. And you need to give them room to breathe. And if you keep expectations clear on the front end, you're protecting yourself. You're saying, if you don't meet these check these boxes, then you've agreed to do that. You haven't done it. So let's talk about that. And it isn't super personal. We've agreed on the front end. So yeah, and then there's the relationship side, which is the goodwill, and you check in on how some people don't want to talk about their kids. Some people don't want to talk about their families. You don't take it personally. That's my advice. It's easy to be like, well, they're not being super friendly with me. Some creatives are very private. They're fabulously creative, but it's really, you keep that personal and professional line. That's my suggestion. Even though in a world today where we all want to be friends, it's very easy to be social, and that's okay too. But I would suggest having boundaries even across the remote platforms, and making sure you understand the dynamics of those people and their preferences, and then just be comfortable with that as long as it's within the lines, So that would be my suggestion: is keep those expectations clear, and then check on them as much as you can on a personal level where it's appropriate.
That sounds good. I wanted to address there was another comment up here, I think, about the whole Twitter blue check mark situation here, and our thoughts on that. 1K a month. Should we be thoughts and feelings on business on Twitter? Probably my own personal opinion is there's not a lot in my world. There's only a couple of clients of mine that are on Twitter and really see a good return on investment. But I know, Nathan, your industry is probably more bound that direction than the other.
I don't know that I have that much to say about Twitter. That place is crazy.
I think too, it comes down to, when I make decisions about where I'm going to be and where my clients are, it comes down to the overall strategy. Does it fit in the strategy? Does it fit? Could it be done someplace else? Do we need to do that? I think too, it's go back and look and see what other folks are doing. Like, I'm a big, people always think, oh, you're a social media person, like you're going to jump on the newest, baddest, biggest social media out there. And I don't always. A lot of times I just sit back and I watch. I watch how other people are using it. Sometimes I never get on it. Sometimes I get on it a little bit later. Sometimes I get on it and watch. So I think too is just seeing, does it work? If you are I saw this meme, if it's not, a solid yes, then it's a no. To me, if you're doubting spending $1,000 a month on Twitter, then I would just say that's a big no, and take that money and use it towards ads where you can track that ROI a little better. We got a couple more questions here. Okay. What do you do, or how do you keep creative ideas fresh and new to attract and retain customers when there is so much noise and clutter in most industries? Larry, what do you think?
Well, I tell you, way back, there was a magazine called Communication Arts Magazine that was back in the 80s and 90s, I think. Just expose yourself to all kinds of things that are going on, and then compare. You can connect the unconnected. Idea one, idea two will generate a hybrid idea three for you. My magazines used to have post-it notes sticking out on the sides. The magazine things in there that I like going on. Now it's a little harder to do digitally because this was print, right? This was ages ago, but you just have to be aware of what's going on and then just combine things in new ways. All creativity is just combining things in new ways that haven't been done before.
Yeah, Jesse, you ask a really good question. I don't know that there's a straight answer for that. It's a constant struggle to try and keep those ideas fresh and new. And sometimes I think one suggestion is don't feel like everything has to be fresh and new. Understand your customers, understand who you're talking to, spend a lot of time digging in. Do I really understand this customer? Do I really understand our clients? What is it that I hear them talk about something on the side? Maybe I could, and then maybe we did a quick creative thing to get their attention to try and get more business from them. Right. So really maybe dig into what are those customers about? What are those potential clients you're trying to look for? Cross-check that about what you've done, what you're really good at, and then see if you can come at it. It doesn't need to be super fresh and super new, right? It just needs to be a little bit of a shiny object to get their attention or to create a little more interest. I have found these agencies and businesses that are able to really build strong relationships foster a lot of creativity because those people at a really deep level. You get to know the marketing managers and their kids' names kind of thing. So the more you can establish a relationship with your clients and understand the potential clients, the easier you'll be able to punch through noise because you just need one thing to get their attention and then you can follow up. So I would say have the idea and also have your follow-up tactics to how you're going to say, well, we showed it to them on the first. How are we going to what's our journey here? How are we going to talk to them after we send it? And what if they say no, or they don't say anything, what are we going to say? And if they say yes, well, this is what we'll say. And we'll move forward from there. Think through it strategically, have communication touches kind of baked, kind of ready. And then you may find some traction in that. Super hard thing. Great question.
Yeah. And Jesse, your question with Samantha's kind of goes in the direction I was thinking with, any tips on creating strategic content strategy is start small. If I've learned anything is you don't have to be everything to everyone. And if I sit down in a meeting and a client, I say, okay, now tell me about your target demographic. And they're like, well, everybody's our target. We want to target everyone. I immediately just want to stand up and walk out and be like, okay, that's not going to be successful for you or me. So if we can really niche down and say, this is exactly who we want to be targeting and find one pathway, that's maybe all you need. You don't have to be on all the paths, even if your competitors are on there or your, other people in the industry are on there. It does not mean that you have to be that way. So I think if you're creating this content strategy, start very small. There's nothing out there that says we can't add to it. But we want to start small in order to see those little wins, and then we can move forward there. Courses, resource training. Well, of course, any course in the IMC program. I talk a lot about strategic content strategy in my content marketing class. It's usually offered a couple times a year. This 6-week course will talk. I talk a lot about strategy, I know, and I am sure Larry and Nathan are just as strategic as I am, and we try to make decisions based on that. So, any of those kinds of courses, resources that you can use just to get in that mindset and also see those wins, see that it can happen. And it doesn't have to be, a lot of times we get a bigger view than we need. And we think, oh, we have to be everything to everyone. And that's not, always the case.
Yeah. Samantha, I would also suggest as you think about your content strategy, we do this at work all the time. We have a campaign that's due next month, and so we're very focused on executing just those things, and we don't stop and look at that customer journey. And how does this, if you started this strategy without understanding the customer journey and narrowing it down to that specific tactic that you're using, is it an email campaign? Is it email, social, print, and digital? All right, what's the journey? And then you put all those touch points across that journey, you're going to find the strategy then goes, okay, well, look, we're going to write a white paper. And out of that white paper, we're going to pull 3 social posts and 2 blogs. And so we're going to audit the white paper and use 3 stats, a quote, and some generic gobbledygook, right? And now I've got a content strategy based off the source of that white paper. We do this a lot at work. And do our customers really read it? Not really, but we're B2B. So it makes sense that we're constantly cranking out that content. So maybe you're doing that already. We're certainly teaching that in the IMC program. So, but it's easy to get wrapped up into the real-time stuff.
And I think too is when we
not knock the bell and go, let's take 10 steps back and look at this as a customer journey standpoint. Where does this go across all the touches? And then your strategy will start to form.
And I think too, we can honestly all say that we're being pushed to do more with less, and that makes us feel like we have to be everywhere as well. Jennifer, you said your students say I need to use Snapchat to market. Thoughts? I always kind of giggle with this stuff because it's another thing where I just sit back and watch and I'm like, okay, Snapchat's going to be the next big thing. And that's how we're going to do. And we know a lot of that younger generation, that coming up, what is that? The group that's coming up to be the big purchasers, that 18 to 24 are using Snapchat. I personally don't have anyone using it as a marketing tool. I feel like they're using it more of a communication, like instead of text messaging, they're using Snapchat. But I don't know, Larry, Nathan, if you ran into this at all.
Snapchat. The only thing I've got to say about Snapchat is my grandson uses it a lot. He's a teenager and he can't understand why I don't. But yeah, it's a communication tool for younger people, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen it leveraged by all kinds of brands, and young people for sure. My daughter's 20. She gets a check from Snapchat once a month because she has so many people looking at all the pictures she's drawn. How the heck? And it's not a big check. It's like $13. But anyway, so it's definitely a platform for communication. I think it goes back to what Kristin said earlier, which is, does it fit your strategy? Mm-hmm. For B2B, it doesn't make any sense to be on Snap. If you're selling T-shirts out of the back of your truck, you should be on Snap because it allows you to really have a brand play. It's really a great way to bring personality to the brand, and you see brands using it that way. The other observation I'll make about Snap is they are on the front end of AR. Now you're not seeing those tools out yet because they're not mainstream, but they're one of the few companies that are really pushing hard, and you see major brands tapping Snap to try and leverage that. Now their stock just dropped a huge. I don't know if Snap's going to be around next year. It probably will be, but they're having a hard time. Your Be Real is as well. Be Real was hit. The other one, the audio one, was strong for a while. Now they're pivoting, and they just fired a bunch of their staff. As marketers, I believe, and especially as creatives, it's our job to know what these tools are and play with them, and see how they might be able to work within the strategy of our bosses, our companies we work for, or our clients. Absolutely 100%. If you're not, especially if you're younger, you're not touching those things, you're making, you may be making a mistake, and I would suggest you be more curious about all these tools and tactics. Now, a lot of them will die, but it's part of our job is to explore and test and learn and be creative. So you see them as platforms. So if you're using Snap to market your products, I think it's a great idea. If you're a company that's B2B, not a good idea. I mean, talk to your company. Does it fit your brand? And and then go for it. It's so personality driven. You have to have the right people running it, or it goes south really fast. You just look kind of dumb. That's my
that whole AI thing that came out with Snapchat here in the last, probably maybe even like maybe not 48 hours, but probably 72 hours,
Mhm.
late last week came out. This probably, that's stuff I watch as well. And as marketers, you never like, I'm watching so many different things that I never would have thought is I'm watching like what's going on in the national news. I'm watching what's going on with, if Snapchat decides to use AI, do people like it or do they not? Because that really factors in. I watched the demise of MySpace. It was a very quick, steep drop that we thought never would have happened, and now we're 15 years out of that, thinking it's kind of the joke now. But we've got to really keep watching that, and I think that's like watching everything that's going on around us as well as what we're doing strategically, is how we have to do that. Yeah, student enrollment, absolutely. But like Nathan said, finding that voice, finding that person for that is a big deal. And yes, Marty, I love that. I look at everything. I'm the same way. He's saying even if you're B2B, use B2C campaigns for ideas. I get ideas that probably if I told you, oh, you know what, my original idea came from that campaign, you would be like, really? Because it has nothing really to do with it, but it sparked a creative idea. And I think that's what's really cool about all of this out in the digital world. So one last question here: how to manage work-life balance. Oh, we could probably talk an hour about that. More specifically, social media burnout as a social media manager. Eek. Yeah, I could, that is something that definitely have seen more of, especially in the last few years. One thing I did years ago, I would probably say it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and then I'll let them say what they think about this. But I turned off all the notifications on my phone, because I noticed I would come out of some place where my phone was sitting and I would be like, oh, why did I get a notification on Instagram? Or why did this client get a notification on Instagram? So I turned all those off. Now, that's not for everyone, but I know that when I have time, I'll sit down and I'll go through, I have the self-discipline enough to go through all of those and make sure I'm checking and all of that. But that's something I do, and that has helped me. But I know that the burnout of social media managers is a real thing. Nathan, Larry, any last?
Yeah, I think my comment on that is burnout is a symptom of something bigger than social media.
Yeah.
So, and your ROI on social media isn't high enough for them to lose you as an employee. You know what I mean? Like, you burn out and you leave, they got a problem. So you may just want to revisit, what is your social media strategy? Why are you doing what you're doing? And find a better rhythm, or a strong, a more appropriate rhythm. In marketing, you have to fight for some of that stuff. You have to go to your bosses and say, listen, we are running and gunning. I got family. We got to find a way not to do this, or to do this. We have to find a better balance. And usually they'll listen and do that. You have to have the nerve to go and bring that up. And it usually results in a good outcome. And if it doesn't, maybe there's a better opportunity somewhere else. I don't know. I'm pretty sensitive to that stuff. Your managers should be aware of burnout. If they're not, you burn through creative people really fast, and that's not good. It's not good.
Well, I'll say one last
One
thing.
of the best pieces of advice you talked about staying aware of what's going on, and I think that I believe maybe it was Steve Jobs that said, stay curious, just stay curious. And I wanted to share one thing that I really like, because I'm about creative ideation. There's a book called How to Fly a Horse by Kevin Ashton. And he wrote, everyone is born creative. Everyone is given a box of crayons at kindergarten. Being hit years later with the creativity bug is just a wee voice inside telling you, I'd like my crayons back, please.
Oh, I like that. For sure. Well, we will wrap it up today. We got a couple minutes for any last questions. I think there was one I saw. Marty said something about AI, creative ideas. I don't know if you were in here when I was talking about, I put in like a question and then I have them write video scripts for me. So absolutely, it can help with the creative ideas, help things flow. Idea wise though, I still think, like you have to come up with something to put in there. But yeah, I mean, the possibilities are definitely endless with AI, and it's definitely something that as marketers, we need to continue to watch. And we are excited to have this course a 6-week course, which is different than what all of us are usually used to in the academia world with the IMC program or an undergrad program. This 6-week course should really allow your creativity to flow, because we're going to go from 2 weeks with each of us building on something to spark our big idea, and be able to move forward with that, and however that looks for you. So we're excited to bring that to you guys on May 22nd, is when that is going to start. Let me had all my stuff in front of me here, and it runs till June 30th. We're going to talk about exploring the creative self, creating content that works, and then unpacking our big idea. And so I believe Stephanie linked that in the chat. So if you scroll up, you can see that. And we'd love to have all of you with us during that 6 weeks, as we talk about that and just dive deeper into all of this. This is obviously feels for me as something that's definitely a need in our industry. I think Nathan and Larry can contest to that as well. The questions we are getting are things that we have been talking about as we create this course. So that's exciting for us that we're definitely meeting the needs of our fellow marketers. So thank you for having us. Thank you for all the nice feedback and everything. And please reach out. I know I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure Larry and Nathan would answer any questions. Our contact information is on the link, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or interested in the course or anything else. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristin.
Thank you.